So that was an excellent job from Satya and Naveen. And I am sure every one of you has a LinkedIn profile. I don't think there is anybody in this room who does not have one. And we talked about turning data into analytics and the amount of data that LinkedIn has about us. We would like to hear what they do with that. So let me introduce our next presenter, which is Deep Nishar. He's the Senior VP of Products and also a TiE Charter member. So Deep Nishar. Thank you, Deep.
Thank you, Paul. So it gives me great pleasure today to introduce two very good friends and Silicon Valley luminaries, Jeff Weiner and Vivek Mehra. So when I asked Vivek a couple of days ago how he would like to be introduced, being the humble and down-to-earth person that he is, he said, oh, just keep it short. It's not about me. So I said, OK, let me introduce him in 140 characters or less. Engineer turned entrepreneur, took company public, successful exit, successful venture investor at August Capital. You can tweet that. So now that I have obliged Vivek, let me tell you a little bit about Vivek, the man, the person. Vivek's an incredibly family-oriented person who has a big passion in photography. And so recently, he was celebrating his 25th wedding anniversary, and it was a very typical Punjabi party. There was a lot of dancing and another activity that starts with the letter D. And even as the guests were rocking it, you could find Vivek in his study, and he was showing his latest pictures to his friends. And one of my favorite pictures from the various bunch that he showed was the one of the Milky Way that he had taken with an exposure time of about 1 hour. And the engineer that he is, he knows that the Earth doesn't stay stationary for an hour. So these were 4-minute increment exposures with the camera moving along with the Earth. So there were 15 exposures that were stitched together. That's a gorgeous picture. Vivek today is going to be interviewing Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn, and my boss. And as many of you know from Jeff's LinkedIn profile, he's an extremely successful internet executive who started back in the day at Warner Brothers, wrote one of the first digital business plans for the media business, then came over to Yahoo, ran a big chunk of it for several years, and then about 4.5 years ago, took over as the CEO of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has had success in just about every dimension under his great leadership and has been one of the most successful IPOs of recent history. But that's everything you already know from his profile. One of the traditions we have at LinkedIn is when new employees join the company, we ask them to introduce themselves at the company all hands every 2 weeks, and they have to share something that's not on their LinkedIn profile. So let me share with you something that's not on Jeff's LinkedIn profile to give you a perspective on Jeff, the person. And that is Jeff's compassionate leadership style. So a few months ago, Jeff hosted a really nice holiday party for all of his direct staff and our spouses. And as we sat down to dinner, he stood up and wanted to give a toast, but it was an unconventional toast. What he did was he went through each and every person in the room, and he said, thank you. And he pointed out the things that he was thankful for us. It was very authentic, it was very heartfelt, and there was not a single person in the room who didn't feel emotional when we heard Jeff talk about and commend us on very specific things that he remembered throughout the year that we had done as a leadership team together. It is that authenticity, that compassion, and that care that he demonstrates each and every day for each one of the employees of LinkedIn and each person he works with that makes him a truly great and compassionate leader. So please help me in welcoming both Vivek and Jeff on stage, and we are in for a really good time and a good treat today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Deep, thanks very much for the introductions and welcome to TiEcon, Jeff.
Thank you.
You know, as most of you guys know, LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world. It has, what 225 million
220.
users, members at this stage, growing at 2 per second. That's pretty amazing. The other interesting fact I'd heard was, if LinkedIn was a country, it would be the 5th largest country in the world. One geeky country. Right. So I guess LinkedIn was founded in 2001. You joined about 4 years ago. Under your leadership, it's been a pretty, an amazingly successful company. You took it public. The stock's gone up, 300% or so. So it's a pretty amazing achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Outside of running a successful public company, I've heard you have a variety of interests. You are an expert in pop culture, which is not what I would have expected from the CEO of a public company.
I'm trying to figure out how you know this, but go ahead.
You're quite
very well researched.
You're quite a foodie.
Jeez, wow, you
right?
did do your homework.
Yeah, and I understand you enjoy celebrating Holi and Diwali, right?
Or they're celebrated for me
Yeah.
in the case of some of those with the paint.
So, this audience, there's a very high percentage of entrepreneurs in this audience, and leadership is a very important element for them. I'd love to get to start off, I'd love to get your views on what effective leadership is.
So I have a pretty straightforward definition of leadership, and it's the ability to inspire others to achieve shared objectives. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a very clear difference between leadership and management. With management, you find people telling others what to do. Leaders inspire them to do it. Yep, big difference. So inspiration to me is the key there. And then the next logical question is, well, what does it take to inspire others? And I think there's at least 3 components to true inspiration. The first is clarity of vision. What hill are you trying to take? What vision do you have? What sense of purpose drives and motivates you? What are you seeing that other people aren't seeing? And the clearer you can be about that, the more easily you can get other people to understand it, internalize it, and ultimately follow it. The second is the courage of your convictions. Because if you're a true visionary, you're going to be seeing something that other people don't see or feel threatened by, because it's going to potentially disrupt the way that they've always done things. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe in your vision with truly every fiber of your being. And that conviction provides the courage to other people to pursue the same. Right. And if you don't feel it, if you are just going through the motions, if you're using somebody else's words, people will sense that from a mile away, right? They need and want to pursue authentic leadership. And then the third component is the ability to effectively communicate the clarity of your vision and the courage of your conviction. To be able to evangelize in a way that people can easily understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish and can act upon it, can measure themselves against it.
So on the way up here, you were talking about the 5 tools of effective leaders. Can you dig a little bit into that? And teams?
Yeah, so it's not so much effective leadership as it is just the kind of talent I look for in terms of, in particular, the consumer web industry and at LinkedIn, and from my previous experience at Yahoo. I had the great privilege of working with a lot of truly talented people. And in studying some of these folks, learning the kind of people I would want to work with and on my team. And so it was originally 3 tools, and then the longer I've been at this, I added a couple. And for baseball fans in the audience, we may have some cricket fans, but for baseball fans in the audience, baseball scouts and baseball managers are always looking for 5-tool players, people that can hit for average, power, run, throw, and field. So this is the equivalent within the internet industry. So the first is technology vision, going back to this notion of vision. Technology is so influential in our world today, it drives so much of our industry, advances, innovations, product breakthroughs, that it's very important that you have someone on the team who understands the direction that technology is moving the world, moving and reshaping society. They are not just looking about today or this quarter or even this year, they're thinking about the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So that's first. Now, just having a technology vision or a good understanding of where technology is heading is not enough. That'll make for good white papers or keynote or symposium presentations, but it won't make for a business. And so the next thing that you need is the ability to harness where technology is going and meet the unmet needs of consumers. So it's product sensibility. How do you leverage great technology to build things that people want, that people need, that adds value to their lives? And the ultimate example of that, of course, is Steve Jobs.
Yes.
And he had a true gift for doing that. And within the Valley, there's myriad examples of that. But a great product's not enough. So you can have a great product, but if you don't have a sustainable business model, the company's not going to be around very long to continue to deliver and distribute and develop that product. You know, you may be doing a lot of volume, but if you're losing money on every product sold, it's not going to work out very well.
I tell people it's very easy for anyone to build $1 billion company. You just sell dollar bills for 90 cents.
That's exactly, I mean, that's very close to the analog I used, which was in the late 90s. You saw, and I'm sure you saw this as an investor, but in the late 90s, you had a lot of companies saying, yes, we're losing $1 on every product sold, but we're going to make it up on volume.
Volume, yeah. Yep.
That's not a great business model. So you need business acumen. You need to understand how you can scale this product that's meeting unmet needs and how you can do so sustainably and scalably. So those originally were the first 3 tools I was thinking about, and I was always on the lookout for these kinds of people. But it turns out when groups of people come together within a company, there are 2 other absolutely essential tools necessary to get things done and to take that technology vision, that product sensibility, that business acumen, and actually motivate and inspire, to our earlier point, inspire teams of people. And so the 4th quality I look for is leadership, which we've already covered, the ability to inspire other people to achieve shared objectives. But it's the 5th tool that's by far and away the most important, and that's resourcefulness.
Yep.
It's just getting things done. Because in the arc or the trajectory of every great company, certainly hypergrowth companies, you're going to experience challenges. It is absolutely inevitable. You're going to run into walls, brick walls. And you're going to need people on your team who can get over those walls, around those walls, or just knock them down and go straight through. And those are the resourceful ones. So if I had to pick one quality out of the 5, I'd go with that last one. Because that resourceful person is going to find the technologist and the product person, the business person, the person who can evangelize and lead. So it's very rare to find someone superlative in any one of those areas. If you find them, hire them. If you find people with multiple skills, that's even better. But if you find someone with all 5, those are the folks that make the pantheon of business. The Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the Jeff Bezoses, and most recently, the Elon Musks.
Right. Right. I think Elon has done a fabulous job in creating not one company, but multiple companies at one stage, right? And taken on challenges that most sane people would not do. You know, who would have thought that, a startup could launch rockets successfully and would be doing that for NASA? And who would have thought that he'd build such a successful kind of electric car company that has the highest consumer rating, right? 99% of people have rated that very highly. So tell me, one of the challenges I've seen often is that you have an entrepreneur that's extremely passionate, an individual that's extremely passionate, but they may be barking up the wrong tree. How do you, when you look at people, when you look at hiring people, how do you determine the passion? Is that a fair passion? Is that an accurate area that they're working on?
So one of the questions I'm most frequently asked when we're recruiting kids coming straight out of school, students, interns, folks looking for career advice, is what should I be thinking about? What are the most important dimensions that I should be contemplating along my ultimate career path? And for me, it's all about knowing what it is you ultimately want to accomplish.
Right.
Full stop.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how infrequently people will take the time to ask themselves and answer that question.
Right.
And I don't always expect it with students coming straight out of school. They haven't yet experienced, a multiplicity of things that enables them to figure out what they like and don't like. But for folks who've been at this for a while, I think sometimes they fall prey to a stream of opportunities. And they took a job out of school, and then they got promoted, and they got a raise, and then they go down this path, and they wake up 5-10 years later, and the passion's not there. And to your point about the entrepreneur that is truly passionate but may not be on the right path, my advice would be don't just optimize for passion. You have to optimize for both passion and skill. And for the entrepreneur, I would add a third dimension, which is the market. And if you can find the convergence, the nexus of those three elements, your passion, your skill, and the market, and you've got the right timing, of course, anything's possible.
Great. No, that's a wonderful framework for people to look at. So one question I've always struggled with, that I've been debating is, are leaders born, or can you learn to become leaders?
It's an excellent question. I think there are certainly qualities that certain people are born with. I think we all have the raw materials to inspire other people. So let's start there.
Right.
And I think you can inspire through word. I think you can inspire through deed. And I think you can inspire, ideally, through both. It's not just your actions, because for whatever reason, if people don't have an opportunity to watch you do what you do, they won't necessarily be inspired by you. And it's not just words. Words are very powerful things, but there's nothing like someone talking the talk and walking the walk. So I think certain people are just born with the ability to communicate more effectively, to channel the things that they're most passionate about, and to communicate that in a way that lifts people up. I think there's others that just know how to get stuff done. And those are the folks that lead by example, that we all watch and we are inspired by the way that they do the things that they do. And I think if the latter case isn't accustomed to taking the time to communicate it and get up in front of a group of people or lead teams, they can be coached to certainly cultivate that skill set, even if it's something that's not instinctive or something that was inherent there to begin with. They can practice it and improve it over time. Right. And the same certainly would hold for leading by your actions, in terms of getting things done, leading by example, understanding the culture of your organization, living up to that culture, not the least common denominator, and aspiring to be better, to do better.
You've spoken about culture, which is clearly a very important element. A lot of people talk about culture, but I've seen people are often confused by what that actually means. How do you describe culture? And how do you manage culture in a high-growth company like LinkedIn, where I guess, where I've read that 70% of the people have been with the company less than 2 years. That's an amazing growth.
Yeah, that's hyper-growth for you. Yeah. And when you are managing hyper-growth, one of my favorite expressions when it comes to managing a hyper-growth business, it's like putting a rocket out into space. If you're off by inches at launch, you can be off by miles out in orbit.
That's true.
Because of the sheer speed with which you're moving. And it's so important in those situations to build a firm foundation. What will typically trigger hypergrowth is an innovation, a breakthrough. And there's so much demand coming in at the company, it's easy to lose sight of the firm foundation you'll need to maintain that growth. Things that are easy to overlook, the importance of your team and talent, your processes, your physical infrastructure. And it's especially challenging at truly innovative companies because they just want to keep innovating. They want that next breakthrough product. Without the right team, without the right process, without the right infrastructure, it's going to be very challenging to do that scalably and sustainably over time. So I think that's part of it. With your question about culture, first and foremost, the way I would define culture is the collective personality of an organization, and not just who you are, but who you aspire to be.
Okay.
And that aspirational component's really important because it gives you permission to dream a little bit.
Right.
And without it, oftentimes what you'll see is a company or a leader will say, this is our culture. And people within the organization will hear a dimension of it and go, it sounds good, but that's not who we are. And you lose credibility.
Right.
When you add the aspirational component to it.
This is where you want to go.
That's exactly right. That's the bar you all want to reach for. I think that's very important. Values, which is a very critical component to culture, subset of culture, for us at LinkedIn, are the operating principles we use to make day-to-day decisions. And that's a subset of our culture.
Right.
And our culture, if I had to find, there's 5 dimensions: transformation, integrity, collaboration, humor, and results.
Okay.
And the most important of those, and if you ask our employees to describe our culture, the first thing they'll tell you is we're a culture of transformation. And for us, the culture of transformation has 3 components. There is the transformation of the individual. Every employee of LinkedIn, we want them to be on a path where we can transform the trajectory of their career. It's the same brand promise we offer our members, we offer every employee. We want to know what your ultimate dream job is. We want to make sure you're on a path to make it happen, that we can coach and develop you and challenge you and inspire you in the right way. The second component of transformation is the transformation of our company, and that's realizing the full potential of the LinkedIn platform. And you mentioned earlier 225 million members. Our immediate addressable opportunity is the north of 600 million knowledge workers in the world. But even that is just the intermediate term. Over the next 10 plus years, our vision is to create economic opportunity for every professional in the world, where the professional is more broadly defined as someone that earns a living from their skill. And there's over 3.3 billion people in the global workforce. And that brings me to the last component of transformation, which is transforming the world. Yeah. And we can't think of anything more important or more sustainably or profoundly valuable than creating economic opportunity for people, because it fundamentally changes and improves the quality of their life, the lives of their family members, and they in turn can create economic opportunities for others. And in developing countries, hard-hit cities, it's creating role models for the next generation of entrepreneurial talent, professional talent that didn't even know it was possible. So that's at the heart of our culture, this notion of transformation.
Right. So Jeff, you were at Yahoo from 2001 to 2008, which is a rather tumultuous period in Yahoo. How did that influence you? How did that influence your leadership style, your way of thinking, way of running businesses?
You say tumultuous period? That's one way of describing it. The first few years weren't as tumultuous. It was up and to the right. It was a lot of fun. The last few years were more challenging, and I wouldn't trade the collective experience for anything. Right. It was some of the most invaluable learning I've ever had. Not only what to do, but at times what not to do. Mm-hmm. And I have found for me personally, experiencing some of those challenges and those problems and learning what not to do is the most valuable learning of all. And that's certainly the case at LinkedIn. So one of the things that I learned from my previous experiences was the importance of focus.
Right.
You know, Yahoo, by definition, one of the reasons Yahoo became and remains one of the most valuable platforms on the consumer web is it essentially introduced the internet to people all over the world. It shaped and defined and organized the entire web. And it started with a directory and then extended into news and email and shopping and so forth and so on. And that's very challenging to maintain over time, because ultimately you're going to invite competition within each of those segments.
Categories, yeah.
And I think Marissa's doing a really nice job now of trying to get the company very focused. And today they talk about daily habits and being world-class at daily habits. But over time, experiencing that, you come to recognize the importance of defining your core. And I'll never forget Jerry Yang, when he became CEO of Yahoo, he invited Steve Jobs to come by and speak to all of the vice presidents of the company. And it was a truly insightful moment for all of us when Steve was talking about when he rejoined Apple. And there were so many different products and SKUs. And he looked at it and said, this isn't sustainable. Not only that, Apple was in, it's hard to believe now looking back on it, but financial hardship.
Very tough.
It was bleeding cash. And he said, we're doing too many things, too many SKUs. We've got to get more focused. And he got his leadership team together and he said, if we could only focus on one thing, what would it be? And they came up with ideas, and then one idea would lead to another idea, and he'd say, no, one thing.
One thing.
We can only do one thing, what would it be? Once we define what that one thing is, then we can get to that next one thing, and the next one thing. But no rationalization, no bundling. What's the one thing? And the one thing then was the iMac. And the iMac, the reinvention of the Macintosh, led, of course, to the iPod, which in turn led to the iPhone, and then the iPad. Now, many years later, as powerful a message as that was, and I never forgot that, ask yourself, if you could only do one thing, what would it be to define your core? And I think that's especially important for startups and entrepreneurs. As you get larger as a company, you'll extend from that core into adjacent growth areas. But I'll never forget it. A few years after he appeared in front of Yahoo's vice presidents, he was at All Things D on stage with Walt and Kara, and they were talking about the iPad. And someone had mentioned offhandedly the iPad obviously followed the phone. He said, actually, you may not realize this, but we were working on the tablet before the iPhone.
Before the iPhone, yeah.
He thought it was too difficult to do the phone in light of the carrier environment. And then a window of opportunity opened up. And Steve Jobs, the genius Steve Jobs, capable of doing seemingly anything within product, And a company like Apple, with all of its resources, hit the pause button on the phone, or rather the tablet, to develop the phone. They went all in on the phone. And so talk about, walking the walk on doing one thing, focusing on one thing. And that really made an impression on me. So when I first joined LinkedIn, it was all about defining the core. And for us, that's connecting talent with opportunity at massive scale. And then I like to visualize a target. And in the middle of that target is the bullseye. And that bullseye is the clearest manifestation or distillation of that value proposition. And for our members, that's professional identity. And then you build out from that. And the next concentric circle for us are insights, delivering the right business intelligence to the right member at the right time. And we're able to do that in a way that other platforms may not be able to do that within a professional context because of identity, because we understand who the professional is, their experiences, their skills, their ambitions, who they know, their connections. And then the last concentric circle is everywhere. It's working wherever our members work, through mobile, through API solutions. And so that's the way we think about our business and stay focused.
So delivering the right content to the right professional, is that the reason why you guys acquired SlideShare and then Pulse recently?
Yeah, this notion of insights and business intelligence is very core to what we do. And you come back to this notion of starting with identity. The objective there is to be the professional profile record. When I started at LinkedIn about 4.5 years ago, that was intuitive to most people, that LinkedIn was understood almost as a professional Rolodex, and people understood the importance of creating a profile and defining their professional identity, their professional brand, if you will. But even then, we believed that there was power and potential in our platform as a mechanism to share professional insights, where we could not only help people find their dream job, but be great at the job they're already in. And to do that, we wanted to get the right business intelligence in front of them. We wanted to extract professionally relevant signal from the never-ending stream of content that people are bombarded with these days. And so the goal there, that second strategic objective, was to be the essential source of professional insights. And that's why we invest so heavily in our homepage. We have over 1.5 million groups on LinkedIn, ranging in size from 2 professionals to north of 500,000 professionals, where people are exchanging knowledge. We acquired SlideShare, just celebrated the 10 millionth uploaded presentation. And SlideShare is really the visual language of business, and the way in which people are sharing their knowledge, their expertise, their insights through presentations, videos. We recently acquired Pulse, which is a mobile newsreader, because increasingly mobile is going to be a very important way in which people are consuming content. LinkedIn Influencers has been a big breakthrough product for us, where we enabled for the first time ever, now up to roughly 300 professional luminaries present in the United States: Richard Branson, Jack Welch, Deepak Chopra. Richard Branson is followed by over 1.5 million LinkedIn members, and some of the most popular posts from these influencers on LinkedIn have been read well over 1 million times. So we are increasingly the definitive professional publishing platform. And that is satisfying that second objective.
So I have 2 other questions. So I understand you're a big fan of Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
So
everyone really did do your homework.
Yeah. So everyone's, everyone knows that he's a great comedian. But what do you like about his approach?
Wow, I've never been asked that question before. So there's the show, Seinfeld itself, which I think is just absolute genius. And the word classic, I think, gets overused, but you look at what they were doing in the early and mid-'90s and how well it holds up today.
Yes.
And the cast, talk about putting the right talent in place. Every member of that cast just was off the charts. The writing, all of it was amazing. Jerry in particular is a craftsman. There was a wonderful article, for those that haven't seen it, there was an article in the New York Times several months ago about how Jerry works as a comedian, how he painstakingly will iterate every joke, which may take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, a couple of minutes to deliver, but sometimes it takes him years to perfect. Yeah. And he loves that. He loves and he doesn't feel like it'll ever be perfect. So he's constantly practicing. That kind of craftsmanship, I think you'll find in most truly world-class experts.
Right. And to me, I felt that doesn't translate into effective entrepreneurs who focus, keep trying to get the product better and better?
Absolutely, and there's no detail too small for Jerry Seinfeld, for true craftsmen. You know, there was a documentary that came out, I think last year, Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Wonderful movie.
Extraordinary, about a sushi chef, master sushi chef that's celebrated as the best in the world. And the similarities between watching this documentary and reading the piece about Jerry in terms of practicing their craft, in terms of never believing it's perfect, in terms of constant iteration, in terms of the almost Zen solitude that they create around them so that they can do what they do. It's really interesting to see the similarities, and we mentioned Steve Jobs earlier. You think about Steve Jobs, you think about Jonathan Ive.
Right.
And the way in which he practices developing truly world-class products. I'm sure if Elon Musk was here today, he'd be telling you there's no detail too small in the Tesla, which is one of the reasons it's just achieved the highest Consumer Reports rating for cars in the magazine's history.
Right. So one final question. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs in this audience?
I guess it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's the importance of knowing what it is you ultimately want to accomplish and taking the time to think through that. And one way of framing it for yourselves is look out 20, 30 years. And what do you want to look back on your career and say you've done? And for those that don't know the answer to that question, optimize for both your passion and your skills, and not one at the exclusion of the other. So that would be one. The second would be, it's all about talent. And achieving your vision and your dreams is going to be all about surrounding yourself with the best talent. I used to believe when I was younger it was all about your mentor, someone that would believe in you and encourage you, coach you, teach you, allow you to take risks and make mistakes. It's not just about the people that you report to. It's the people you work with. It's the people that report to you. In this day and age, it's all about the quality of your people. And then lastly, it's to always be learning. Yes. Always be learning and recognizing that we can always improve. And there's something that we can always do and think about that we can leverage to make ourselves better, our products better, and our companies better.
Well, thank you very much. It was a wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.